Welcome to the Harsch Review, where we talk about movies, TV, and all things entertainment. This is Sean, and with me is my brother Ryan.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
All right, well, to give you a little bit of backstory, growing up together, one thing Ryan and I always had in common was a love for movies. While our tastes vary from time to time, that never really stopped us from having good conversations. So we decided to start a podcast dedicated to all things movies and television, past, present, and future. All right, well, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get the show on the road. Ryan, you watched anything exciting this week?
Let's see. Went and saw Star Wars again this weekend.
Oh, is that your second time, huh?
Second viewing. It was liked it a little better the second time.
Did you?
Yeah, not that I hate the movie or anything. It's just I think it takes a couple viewings to see it, and definitely in the theater. It makes it all worthwhile. So yeah, I liked it a lot better. We can talk about that in a little bit here.
Yeah, I'm definitely due for a second viewing of that one after the original honeymoon, seeing it the first time. And I know we're going to do much bigger deep dive into that one, but I'm excited. Good to hear you liked it.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
I didn't watch Star Wars, but I dusted off the old Blu-ray of The Dark Knight over the weekend.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
I've seen it several times. That movie is totally rad, but I think that my patience for the Bat voice is going to end up ruining that movie over the course of my lifetime.
Yeah. That's a little too Clint Eastwood-ish for me.
Yeah, it's a bold move when the first line that Batman speaks is, "I'm not wearing hockey pants."
Right.
So, I mean, I just found myself
jokey.
Yeah, I found myself laughing at a few lines, and I can't remember what he said. I got to go back and check it out. But there's one line during the end where he says he's having a conversation and he says something, and I'm like, I don't even know what he said right there.
He just needs to stick to straight dialogue and stop trying to make jokes.
Yeah, and
he's not Spider-Man,
No, Christian Bale is definitely not Spider-Man. But I was also having American Psycho flashbacks with his, the way he looks as Bruce Wayne. Which I never really thought the first time, but this time around I was definitely seeing it.
Yeah, I think he was going for that look for sure.
Yeah,
the slick back hair and the facial scrub and mask.
Yes, very very clean.
Patrick Bateman.
Nice.
You like Huey Lewis in the News?
Bateman. Yeah, Huey Lewis in the News. Hey, it's a solid. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, anything else exciting happening on your side of the fence before we get into things?
Let's try to get into the show Hannibal.
Okay. Which I know there's lots of ones out there. Which one is you talking about?
I think it's a series on, I believe it's A&E. I'm watching it through Amazon right now.
Gotcha.
It's okay. Going into it, I thought it would have more of a backstory on Hannibal Lecter, who's, great character, as you know, but it's a little different. Like he's paired up with Will something or other, who's the predecessor to the Jodie Foster character.
Okay.
So they're kind of working together in the FBI. It's really different. I mean, the cast is good.
It's kind of like Catch Me If You Can, but with Hannibal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's not what I really expected though. I mean, I wanted a little more of Hannibal's backstory, how he became a lover of all things flesh, and I mean, every time I watch him eating something on the show and making dinner for somebody, I just can't get that out of my head that he's eating a human kidney or pancreas or something. So gonna kind of rest on that one for a bit, but I did start watching again The Man in the High Castle.
I flattened out about halfway through the first season.
Yeah.
Not for any particular reason. I enjoyed it. The premise was pretty cool. It was creative. It was done fairly well.
Yeah.
But it kind of slowed down a bit for me, and then, life happens. Other things come along. They grab your interest, and you just don't go back.
Sure.
Is this your first pass at The Man in the High Castle?
Yeah. I'm impressed. I do like you said, the premise is good. We'll see. I mean, I'm about halfway through season 1, so we'll see. I'll give it some time.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely owe it to finish that show. I enjoyed it so far. Might have to watch an episode or two to ramp back up to figure out where I was at.
Right.
And they're on what? They already finished the second season now, is that correct?
Yeah, I think they're going to go for another one. So I think that's coming out this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I can say that 2017 was a pretty exciting movie for movies and TV.
Yes.
A little bit more for the movies on my side of the fence. I'm not quite sure about how you feel, but figured we'd take some time and do a little bit of review of 2017 and, get ready for a whole nother year of movies.
Sounds good to me.
So, in no particular order, any particular movies stand out to you that you rather enjoyed?
Well, I got a little list here. I'll just kind of go down the list. One movie I really enjoyed was Dunkirk.
Dunkirk.
Which absolutely must be seen in the theater, just for the cinematography and the sound alone.
Sure. Yeah, people missed that one. That was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah. But very different. I think a lot of people might have gone into it thinking it was a war movie, which it really isn't. I mean, it's more of a rescue kind of movie. World War II based on real events. I think if you're from England, the movie's going to take a lot more significance. Either way, still a good experience to just kind of to see that in the theater and be absorbed by it. But it's not your typical war movie at all. There's really no attachment to the characters. A lot of it that I found was centered a lot more just on emotions and just the events that were happening.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting approach to making a war movie, which you could tell was probably what interested Nolan in the first place. I definitely want to do a much larger dive into Dunkirk, but I will say, I enjoyed it a lot, but I did walk out maybe a little underwhelmed. I think the expectations of kind of going in there were pretty high, and it's not that they weren't met. It's just you kind of have to process like, okay, hold on, that's not what I thought I was getting. It's not a linear war movie like how most are. The story arc is different. Characters don't have names. Yeah, it's very visual, and I need to watch it a few more times to kind of appreciate what it is and the directing and the feats that are there. Because there's definitely a lot of awesome achievements within that movie. Just first time going through it, you kind of have to piece the story together yourself with the way that it was shot. Did you like his approach to intertwining the, I believe, 3 different narratives that were there?
I thought it was interesting. Definitely a different way to do it. I just felt a little bit of a detachment from the characters. Just the way the whole subject matter was dealt with was a little cold. Unlike another great war movie like Saving Private Ryan, where you really kind of grow with these characters and you feel for them, their names. In Dunkirk, again, it's not really a character-centered or driven film at all. It's just the characters. The characters are almost incidental.
Yeah, it's creative. I definitely enjoyed the music. I enjoyed seeing it in the theater. I need to spend some more time with the Blu-ray on that one.
Yeah,
that is awesome. So let me ask you, going from Dunkirk, let's go to the other side of the spectrum and talk about Coco. You see that one?
I didn't see Coco.
I wasn't planning on it, and it just kind of came up. And it's Coco, for those who don't know, is another one from Pixar. Essentially just kind of centers around the story of the Day of the Dead. And what I really enjoyed about it, not only visually, is Pixar continuing to up their game. And this is the unit that's not doing all the sequels. So if you kind of notice that they have like a little bit of a leapfrog with their production, where you might get something from the Toy Story universe or like this summer's Incredibles 2. Then you have your alternate Pixar stories, which are standalone one-offs, which are the ones that I personally enjoy the most.
Yeah, but WALL-E or...
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But in that vein, it's what I think I appreciate the most is them taking very adult themes, very adult stories, and making it accessible for an entire family. So Coco primarily deals with the subject of death pretty heavily. That's the whole point of the movie. And, characters are remembered by their families by the photos that they put up. And if the family doesn't remember them by putting up photos on the Day of the Dead, then eventually they get forgotten and their spirit, leaves this realm, so to speak. So I'm just watching it. Not only is it visually very, very good, and was very efficient in its telling of its story. But I'm just kind of curious, like from a kid's point of view, this is pretty heavy. So I really respected how well they were able to kind of go along that narrative, talk about life and death, but keep it in a very positive, meaningful way, which you don't really see out of a lot of animation flicks. So a lot of respect there.
Okay. Yeah, I heard really good things about it. It's just, do you think like subject matter like death, of course, is that appropriate for a young audience, or do you think it's dealt with in a sensitive way? I mean, how's that handled in the movie?
I mean, I think it is. I just think back to a lot of the movies that I saw as a child that had death, and it was all suggestive. And it's implied death. You know what's going on. Even Star Wars movies and things like that kids are loving, there's still a lot of death in there. It's just all very suggestive. You never see a killing blow, but you definitely know, okay, that person did not survive. And so when they kind of deal with it head on, the approach that they took it was that death was not final. They were not talking about it as being once you die, that's it. So it was nice to kind of see. It was nice to kind of see them address that subject and keep it optimistic and hopeful, because ultimately the message that they wanted to send home was that you need to remember people in your lives and keep them alive even when they pass, because they're still with you. Right. And it was great because I think they did a lot of respect to the Day of the Dead and a lot of Mexican beliefs, which surprisingly most people in America probably are not too intimate with, although they're intimate with the visuals and the skeletons. I mean, Bond did it in their recent Spectre, I believe, where they started the whole show with the Day of the Dead festival down in Mexico, and people see the visuals and they were intimate with it, but they didn't really understand the meaning behind it. So they did a great job of introducing that to a much larger audience. Probably
a lot of education involved.
Oh, absolutely.
For those who aren't familiar with the cultural significance of that.
No, absolutely. And don't quote me on this, but I remember reading that I believe Coco was the highest grossing film in Mexican history, which if that's true, tells you something. I need to dig up some specific numbers, but I'm pretty sure that is true.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I got one for you. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it was an interesting, kind of impressive movie, Detroit.
Detroit. I have not seen Detroit. Tell me about it.
It's good. It's, of course, historical. It's based on some riots that occurred in that city in, I believe, 1967.
So it's not about Kiss?
No, unfortunately not. Or Motown or anything like that. Even though there is like some scenes in there that deal with the music band in kind of the Motown vein. It's really about just kind of one specific event that occurred during the riots and then the aftermath of it. One thing that really stood out to me was this actor that should probably be watched somewhere down the line. His name's Will Poulter.
Okay.
Have you heard of him?
Sounds familiar. I need to look him up and see if I recognize his face.
Yeah, he was one of the sons in We're the Millers. He was had a semi-prominent role in The Revenant. Didn't know he was a British guy, but he plays this pretty much just like hateable character. And I know those, kind of like Ray Fiennes in Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Just really kind of a despicable character. But you really, I mean, he does it so well that at times when I was watching the movie, I almost wanted to turn it off for a minute and just take a minute because it was pretty intense.
He's like a total punk ass, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I recognize this guy from The Revenant for sure.
Yeah, he's really good in Detroit, and I think if he doesn't get some kind of recognition, he'll go on to do some good movies. Rad. Somewhere down the line, but I think it's a pretty good film. I don't know if it how it did in the box office or not, but I kind of gravitate towards some of the historical movies just to see what they're about and see what their take is on a certain subject that I may not know about.
Sure, and I did hear about this because Catherine Bigelow did direct it, which is probably one of the stronger female directors out in the field right now, and it's I'm excited to kind of see subject matter touched. And see what her point of view is, because she definitely, in the last few movies she had, there's a sense of realism with just the characters and the situations. It wasn't a lot of Hollywood, so to speak. I
mean, she's come a long way since Point Break, that's for sure.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, but getting back to your comment, a lot of times it felt almost like a documentary. I mean, a lot of handheld camera, just a lot of shots of what was going on without too much comment. So definitely recommended. It's a little heavy.
I will add it to my list.
Should be watched.
Did you see that one in the theater?
Yeah, actually I saw it on a Redbox.
Oh, Redbox. I'm not a Redboxer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind going and getting it. I just don't like the commitment of having to go back and put it back in the Redbox.
Yeah, I mean, at least you don't have to rewind it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good part.
You don't have to be kind. You can just dump it off.
Yeah, just stick it in the slot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well,
you want to put it that
I
way.
definitely need to add that to my list. I don't know how I missed that one, but looking forward to it.
Check it out.
You know, another one that I missed in the theater that I really wish I went and saw was, but I did catch it once it came out on iTunes, was Wind River. Did you watch that one?
Oh, I did. I thought it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a nice surprise. I love it when I get to go into a movie blind and don't know anything about it other than what you see on the cover. I don't even remember any trailers or anything for that. I think this was something that you just kind of recommended. Hey, awesome movie, check it out. So I said,
sure,
I will do. And it was good. Very heavy.
Yeah, it had kind of a No Country for Old Men vibe.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
Another movie I loved, but it's the guy did it. He directed it. He wrote Sicario, and he wrote Hell or High Water, which is another good movie.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So really, really good. Jeremy Renner's great.
Yeah, he is. It's interesting because his approach to most movies is kind of the same. So you know what you're going to get, but what I liked about his approach in this one was the character seemed to complement his natural style of acting, and was a little more believable compared to when he's playing like a Jason Bourne, for example.
Sure. And he's not really the kind of actor that, I mean, you can read a lot more on his face, or that's kind of more of the actor he is. I mean, very kind of downplayed, doesn't really have these like crazy moments, but just a good actor all around.
Yeah, I loved how his character had a lot of swagger, where he's comfortable out there. You believed he was experienced tracker. You believed he has been out in those conditions a long time, and I think that was a good balance, between the female lead, where she was just in over her head as an agent out there, and he was just nonchalant about the whole thing.
Sure.
Definitely is a somber ending, I would say, at the least.
I think so too.
But it's definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it yet. Hard to talk about without spoiling anything, because it is a movie where it's not a fast-paced action type movie. It's definitely a detective story, but also a survival story, I think, in many ways. Absolutely. That is awesome.
Yeah, just kind of slowly unravels, and a lot of little surprises and things coming up. It's I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Nice. Wind River.
Yeah. Another one for you. Did you see King Arthur?
I did.
Oh, what'd you think?
I all right. So I heard
Guy Ritchie.
I heard the interview on Rogan's podcast many months ago with Guy Ritchie talking about the movie, how long it took him to make it. And after that interview is when I finally said, like, yes, I'll go see it. Because I'll be honest, I was not interested in it, even though I think King Arthur's rad. I love the story. I love the time era. But, I wasn't 100% sold on his point of view for the movie. Should have given him more of the benefit of the doubt, but
it just seems like it's been done so many times. It's like, all right, here we go again.
I know. And
we get it. Like, he pulls the sword out. And, is going to be a table. Guess what? It's round. What's going to happen next? So
are you guys knights?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're knights. Yeah. it had a lot of like the Guy Ritchie isms.
Sure.
You know, where like the camera will like speed up all of a sudden, or it does like that quick little flashback, which, you know, it works well. I think he's better suited to like the crime genre. You know, so like Snatch, Lock, Stock, Two Smoking Barrels, even Sherlock Holmes. I think he did a good job with that franchise.
And I agree. I would agree. He's a very good visual storyteller, and
absolutely.
You know, I can respect any director who has their own style or point of view. When you're watching the movie, you know who it is, regardless if it's good or not. I will appreciate those movies more than somebody who directed or shot a flick and I don't really know who it is without going into it.
Yeah.
So I like that he brought his own identity. He was able to, you know, have his own point of view. But I think for me, in the end, it was entertaining. Wasn't blown away. Didn't really match what I heard him talk about in the interview with Rogan.
He seemed to be talking a lot more about his suit in that interview.
Yeah, well, he loves his suits.
You know, like,
he's a sharp-dressed man for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
King Arthur. All right, so that made your list though. You dug it.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much like you said. It was just like I saw it. I was like, yeah, it's mildly entertaining. I'm sure there'll be another one coming up.
Oh, King Arthur 2?
You know, yeah, the actual.
It's just King Arthur 2.
Yeah, I mean, good choice having Jax play King Arthur.
Right. You know, so yeah, Jax. We'll go back to we'll go back to Jax in a second.
Okay, all right.
Jude Law, was nice seeing him get some work because the last thing I saw him in was the Pope flick on HBO.
Oh,
the Young Pope, and which I thought was a great series.
I liked it.
Unfortunate to hear how long it's going to take for them to get another one off the ground. That whole series overall impressed me just with the art direction, the music, and the writing. I really, really enjoyed
Different
it.
show.
Absolutely. So this was the first thing that I seen him in. Since that, he played the bad guy in King Arthur, and he did a pretty good job. I mean,
he did.
You're going to get the same kind of thing with him, but every once in a while, Jude Law can really surprise you. Wasn't surprising me in this one, but I enjoyed it either way. So let's go. Let's go back to Jax.
Okay, let's do it.
So Jax goes from the Knights of the Round Table era for King Arthur, and then he's off to the jungle in the lost city of Z.
Oh yeah.
I didn't see this one in the theater, but I rented it at home. I believe you saw it in the theater. Is that correct?
I did.
And first of all, I think it's a great story to tell. It was something that was new to me. I didn't really know much about, you know, how you make a movie about somebody who draws up maps. Interesting. But there's a very good story to be told in that. I thought it was well done and well shot. It was a little creepy in many ways. It was a very slow paced movie. I kind of felt like this was him, trying to break out of the mold of being, so to speak, Jax, because that's all I really see is Jax. When
it's like a vehicle for him. Yeah. Every time I see him, I think I'm like, where's Ron Perlman at?
Yeah, I know. And so
where's Peg Bundy at? That's all I'm thinking.
And that's going to happen with a lot of actors that play an iconic type character like he did with Sons of Anarchy, but
totally
with Charlie heading into the jungle and playing that role, a few things kind of struck me out is how they aged the character, his desire to keep heading into the jungle, which I appreciated the most, is just how miserable and shitty his experience was, yet he was never really satisfied because he kind of felt like he was making progress into discovering these hidden things in the jungle.
It's really a movie about obsession.
It is, and ultimately, it didn't really end well for him or one of his sons that he went with. But
yeah, it kind of sucked. He had to drag his son into all that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the son wanted to kind of go, but he should have said no.
Well,
right? I mean,
I would have probably not taken my kid, but at the same time, this is a guy who's leaving a family for years at a time to go out in his jungle escapades. I'm sure he was pretty confident at that stage in his life and thought everything would be fine. But spoilers, they disappeared. No one heard of them ever since. It's an old story that's been around. It's the telling of how when he essentially was Percy Fawcett, the explorer who was helping draw lines between different countries in South America.
And even the ending's speculated. I mean, no one knows.
No one really knows.
What happened. There's like a cinematic device in there that shows, oh yeah, maybe he did survive. But I read the book. Like after I saw the movie, I thought it was an interesting topic. I'm like, I'll do that with movies. Like I'll watch the movie if it's got some fact. I'll go, oh,
sure, or vice versa. You know, you read the book and you're like, I'm curious to see how they do that in the movie.
Sure, yeah. And so the little cinematic device. I don't want to ruin it for those who want to go see it, but that was nowhere in the book. So the bottom line is, you don't know what happened to the guy.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate, but expected. Yeah. Heading into the jungle back in those times, and best of luck to you.
Yeah, good luck, buddy.
Yeah, good luck. Sorry, Jax, not coming back from this one.
Yeah, all right. Bye, Jax.
Awesome.
Yeah, I got a good indie movie I saw.
Okay.
Also a Redbox. It's called Good Time.
Good Time. Wait, I have heard of this. Don't tell me. Is it the vampire? Edward.
Yes.
So, before you dive into that one, I've been on the fence about watching this. It's on my list, and I've just was kind of going off of some reviews I read, how people were very pleasantly surprised about it. So I'm surprised that you mentioned it here. Is it good?
I liked it. It's pretty fast paced. I mean, I like it just more for him.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good in it. He just plays kind of this creepy, manipulative character. So it's pretty much worth watching for his performance alone. And like Jax, he's another one of these guys that has to break out of that iconic role that you only know him for.
No, wait. It's kind of funny. You went to this movie because wasn't he in Lost City of Z?
He was, yeah. Actually,
and that, I was just, you just reminded me is that you say he has to break out of it, and that was the first movie for me where I'm watching going, wait a second, this is Edward, not bad.
yeah. And there's another movie really quick a couple years ago called The Rover.
The Rover, not the elephants one.
Not that one. No, it's with Guy Pearce. It's kind of like a post-apocalyptic movie. Real interesting director, Animal Kingdom, but he was in that too, and he played a good role in that. So, a
lot of potential.
Definitely, I mean, yeah, a lot of potential. I think Edward was just the start of something good.
Well,
no sarcasm in that whatsoever.
Can't hold him to that. I mean, I would have taken the money and I would have done it. Whatever you got to do to get your foot in the door. So more props to Pattinson there. So Going back to Good Time, tell me a little bit about what's the premise of the movie. You said it was fast paced.
Yeah, it's kind of basically just like a robbery movie. It's Pattinson and then his brother who's disabled, and he's got some autism and hearing disabilities. Kind of manipulates his brother into assisting him with his caper. And then it pretty much all takes place in one night. I mean, it's just all these crazy things that kind of go down around robbery and the fallout from everything. So, really kind of a different movie. Not like a ton of characters in it. But it's a good acting vehicle for him, if anything.
Sure.
He just plays a scumbag, really. I mean, you don't really sympathize with him. You sympathize more with the brother who's just being kind of made to do these things and used.
Is this an English movie or British?
Yeah, it's a British
movie. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I would recommend it.
Yeah, it's on my list. I've been searching iTunes every once in a while for something new, and I keep seeing it come around. I'm like, I should really maybe I'll have a good time.
Have a good. Well, the title's a little misleading because the characters in the movie have anything but a good time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like they named.
But you will if you watch it.
What if they named Deliverance Good Time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nope.
Great times. Yeah.
Yeah. No good times. No. I think speaking of good times, the most enjoyable for me as far as just having fun was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
That's on my list. I haven't seen it yet.
It's a lot of fun. Now, heading into this franchise, I didn't know anything about it. I don't even remember if I saw the first one in the theater. I think I did. And
I did. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It was a whole new characters to kind of learn to, but it was well made. First thing you walk away from is that, the soundtrack is on point, and they definitely delivered for Volume 2. Soundtrack continues to improve. So there's a lot of good taste that goes into how the movies are made, especially for things that are under the Marvel umbrella. But really with Volume 2, visually, I thought it was incredible. When I watched it, I thought it was one of the coolest looking movies I've seen in a long time. And with the effects, it's a good evolution to where you kind of look at how are effects being used in the movies, and Guardians Volume 2 looked rad. So you get a good progression visually. They take it to new places. Doesn't feel old and tired like they're just doing another sequel. It was actually very refreshing.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of sequels that are more done like a serial. You're not having some huge trilogy story arc that carries over. The story arc is within the character's evolution or development.
This goes to the next phase.
It goes to, a whole new circumstance. And so you definitely get that where, Chris Pratt plays the main character, and within there he meets his dad, which was Kurt Russell, which was excellent, excellent casting within that.
I love Kurt Russell.
Yeah. So he's a nice surprise heading into the movie, but he was also a big draw when they were marketing it and things. So people knew that he was going to be involved in it. So I definitely enjoyed seeing the direction they took the story and where they're taking this franchise and the characters. It's definitely much more original, in my opinion, compared to a lot of the other movies in the Marvel universe.
Nice.
And I get it. I know why.
One of the better franchises to me.
Yeah, I mean, when Disney closed down Tower of Terror in Southern California, the Disneyland, and they converted it to Guardians, that was definitely a big head scratcher moment. But after you've seen Volume 2, you kind of get it. You kind of walk away with it and go, okay, I see the ecosystem going on here. It's a great movie. Visually, it's a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of great moments within it. It's a great pace. I just remember it was just a fun popcorn flick. Yeah. Definitely got to see that one.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with the first one for sure. So I don't know why I haven't seen it yet. It's just my list keeps piling up.
Well, you're spending all your time watching all these serious, depressing movies.
Yeah.
You got to balance it out with a little fun every now and then.
I hear you. Yeah. That'll be my New Year's resolution. Right?
Yeah. Is there anything fun on your list?
No.
Maybe that's the difference between us here.
I guess, everything's got to be dark and heavy.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. Yeah.
I have, I don't know what that is. I mean, I just.
You're a serious man.
I'm a serious man. I have apes on there. I just wrote apes.
Apes. I do too.
Yeah.
I put war for the Planet of the Apes, not just apes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was in a rush. I was just scribbling down movies.
So let's talk about war for a second.
Okay.
The closing of this trilogy.
Oh, is it?
Well, I believe it is. I don't see them continuing this story, or at least the arc of Caesar and everything that kind of goes along. I guess the best way to say it is it's the closing of Caesar's story. But they could easily continue to do it because, Planet of the Apes, come on.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
I did. I thought it was a bit long. No spoilers really, but the apes are basically in the whole thing.
Yeah, if you go to it, it's not War for the Planet of the Humans. Lots of ape action in this one.
Yeah, the humans aren't really looked kindly upon at all.
There's a couple of things I really enjoyed about the movie. I thought that having Woody Harrelson in it was a nice twist for a main villain to kind of counteract it with. But really, Andy Serkis is the all-star of this whole show, and his performance in War was the best yet I've seen from him.
He usually always is, that guy.
It's a hidden talent how he came up and just continues to just deliver Very emotional. I mean, I don't understand how he has not been nominated or just given a nod at all for his performance, because even though you're not visually seeing him on the camera, you're seeing his performance come across with
everything.
Yeah, with everything.
Facial gestures and everything else. So he's great. I mean, everything he's in, I'm just like, you're just kind of captivated by him being, even if you find out later it's him, like with King Kong, I didn't even know that was him.
Yeah, he's doing everything.
Snoke. And then you find out later, it's like, that's Andy Serkis, like doing everything. So it's like, okay, and he's in the Prestige for a minute, but it's like, that's him. Like he's not doing anything crazy.
Was he Tesla's right-hand man?
Tesla's assistant. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Right.
So, he gets out in front of the camera sometimes. I still think he does a great job when he gets out in front of the camera.
Right.
I believe he's making his directorial debut this year with his take on the Jungle Book.
Interesting.
Yeah, it comes out later this year. It is a bit interesting because the Jungle Book just came out, and that was the Disney one. This is not a Disney production. So he's pulling a little bit more closer to the book, and he's got a different point of view for how it goes.
Must really like the Jungle Book.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, just to do this movie right away like that.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
What's that squeaking sound there? Is it your stress toy?
That's I'm getting a little stressed out here.
Todd?
That's the dog.
Yeah, Todd. Reel him in.
Dog's name is Todd.
Oh, well, Todd's excited because we're talking about the Jungle Book after we're talking about apes, so I can't blame him. We got a lot of action going over here.
I think he's feeling neglected, I think.
Oh, little Todd.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
Well, I got a few more on my list I want to kind of dive into. Star Wars is on my list, but we'll talk about that one later since it came out so much later in 2017. So the last few on here for me, Logan was a big win.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, for me, that's like how the superhero movie or whatever, like a comic book movie should be done.
Well, there's a few ways you can classify a comic book movie, in my opinion.
Okay.
So if you look at Spider-Man, which you can run it really close to the source material where it's fun, and Spider-Man is another one that's on my list for Spider-Man Homecoming, which I thought was really awesome. So we'll get to that in a second. But ultimately, it still has a youthful spirit to it. But then you go more along the lines of what Christopher Nolan did with the Batman franchise, which is a much more serious, based in this world type of scenario where if you saw there's a Batman that lived among this is possibly how it would look or how it would feel.
A lot more of the psychology of how people would feel about it, and then his own psychology going on too.
No, absolutely. And so it's not based in a different alternate universe. Then you have things much more like with Avengers, which my biggest distaste with some of the Marvel movies is that they are based in our world, where you're seeing news reporters that we're familiar with on TV. You're seeing all these different things. They even did it, I think, in some of the Batman versus Superman, where I don't know, they're blending in characters with just everyday real life. So the fantasy element is a little bit gone. I don't like my comic book movies to feel like they're part of our everyday lives. It should be more of an escapism, and go in a different universe. Yeah. So
I agree with you.
What I'm trying to say is that it's you're not fooling anybody, and I know that's not what they're really trying to do, but I feel like they're kind of missing out on telling those stories where...
And it almost comes across as, I don't want to say cheesy, but a little bit.
Well, I just never visually, how I told those stories in my head when I was reading the books, I never really put it together that this was happening in my world. It was always an alternate world. So seeing a lot of these things, and it's like, yep, that's definitely New York, or that's the White House. On one hand, I dig it. because they are bringing these things into real life, so you kind of get that feeling. But on the other hand, I never really read them that way when I was younger. So I'm still a little bit torn on how well they balance, the blend of these characters in our everyday lives as if, Captain America's real. So with Logan, really they're taking a character, and a lot of the X-Men franchises was also another one of those ones that blended them into our politics and in our society as America as being a real entity. But they really just extract the Logan character and Professor X and really just focus on telling the closing chapter with him. And it's pretty dark. It is really dark, and that's what I appreciate about it. And
have you seen because I got it on Blu-ray there's a black and white version.
have.
It's great.
Yeah, it's got a nice noir vibe to it. You definitely taken the movie a little differently because some of the visuals are a little more muted, so you can focus more on the performance and the acting. Hugh Jackman's awesome in this. He was super weathered, looked great. Patrick Stewart was great, and even Stephen Merchant was an interesting addition in how he played his character. Interesting
casting choice.
Yeah, but it worked.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I really think, that's Ricky Gervais's buddy. I never really thought that. I just think he did a really, really excellent job playing that character.
So I guess what really, to kind of close my point here is that Logan was self-contained. It was very simple with its story, but very effective in how they told it. It was executed, I think, perfectly. Hugh Jackman really should get some kind of accolades or acknowledgement for his acting within that. If nothing can't break through, if Logan can't break through with what you would consider maybe something Oscar worthy, none of these other films have a chance outside of just the visual and the actual creation of the movie.
Good point.
But from acting wise, I think Logan is right up there on par with. I mean, I even thought Downey was awesome in the first Iron Man. Went a little downhill for me since then. But there's not too many action hero movies where you actually see a really top performance. Heath Ledger, obviously, in The Dark Knight. Not many others, not at least that come to my mind.
Yeah. No. Yeah, not really. I mean, it's just kind of campy and not a lot of depth to it. But in this instance, I think Jackman played it very well.
All right.
And it just kind of in the end of his life, or whatever, and just kind of. You get to see that not all going to be happy.
So I also mentioned Spider-Man Homecoming within there as well. Did you happen to watch that most recent one?
I did not see that one.
Spider-Man's rad. Michael Keaton is back as a villain, and I think he was probably the star of the movie in my opinion. If you're a Michael Keaton fan, this is definitely it. And it's nice to see him getting some of these kind of roles.
He was in the movie.
Yeah. He's the main villain, and he owns it. He does a great job playing it. He executes his dialogue well. I was surprised. He's got some creepy moments in there.
He played a villain in RoboCop too, the reboot.
Oh, but he did.
I mean, kind of, right? I mean,
the good RoboCop movie, right?
Yeah, right.
The first one does not hold up.
Come on. Okay. That's another podcast.
Yeah, well, it's of
its time, sir.
That's a stretch even then. My favorite thing about RoboCop, the original, was when the dude gets nailed by the truck and just turned to liquid. Other than that, as a kid, that's what I enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
But it's worth seeing.
You got to sit through. Yeah.
Spider-Man. It was a lot of fun. Great casting for Spider-Man. It's probably the best one yet. It's been a franchise ultimately that's had lots of ups and downs. There's a lot of legal issues behind who owns the rights, who can do Spider-Man, who can't do Spider-Man, between Sony and Marvel. So it is a bit interesting why do we really need another Spider-Man? But after watching it, I say, keep them coming. This one was great.
Okay.
So go check it out. I know it's out. You can rent it. You'll definitely enjoy Michael Keaton in there.
Can I Redbox it?
I'm sure you're a big fan of the Redbox.
And it's right down the street.
Yeah,
man.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't have any more movies on my list.
Well, I got one more back in the superheroes, okay, so we can kind of close this one out. But did you get a chance to see Wonder Woman?
I did not.
So, yeah, see, it's not as depressing as your usual selections.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But Wonder Woman.
That's why. Then.
I really enjoyed it. It was executed very well. The story was pretty good. You know, there's a lot of moments in it that kind of bothered me. I thought that they kind of played into the character of Wonder Woman a bit too much with just how people in her universe reacted to her.
Careful with your words, sir.
You know, they don't hide it at all in the movie. Everybody's first reactions to her is like, "Oh, you're so beautiful, you're this," and it gets a little old after a while. While it makes sense and I understand it, it was a little bit more distracting just kind of seeing people actually accepting this female lead amongst them. I thought it was awesome to see her kick ass and visually how they did that, because you only got a little bit of a taste of Wonder Woman as a character in Batman versus Superman. So to kind of see a little bit of the origin and how she kind of came up, and it told me, I learned a lot that I didn't know about the character. So I thought she did a great job playing and owning the role. It's nothing that has really been done visually before, where a female director is making a superhero movie with a female lead. It's just a refreshing point of view to have. It's probably the highlight of the DC movie universe, which, in my opinion, is not that great.
Doesn't hold up to Marvel at all.
It's trying to find its own voice. I think that most of the DC movies, they have a good style and look going for them, but they haven't quite gelled just yet. There's not as much cohesiveness going on with the Marvel universe, with the DC universe as compared to Marvel. Maybe that's just a little bit amongst the franchises they have to work with. DC is definitely a little bit more of a serious tone to them, which is my preference. I really want them to be good. I just feel like most of them fall short as a whole, and you're kind of left with having to watch the movie and kind of extract some kick-ass things.
I gotcha. DC's always kind of been a second fiddle to Marvel, aside from a couple characters. So sure. Yeah, it's hard to get their footing.
Yeah, definitely is. But I'm not. Even though there's a handful of these superhero movies on my list, that's not my number one preference. I tend to be super critical of a lot of action hero type comic book movies, and that's simply because I feel many of them are a cash grab, and you don't get the same type of quality that you did with the original Iron Man, as I referenced earlier. But Wonder Woman definitely was a passion project. You can tell they did a great job with it, and it captures a lot of that good nostalgia.
Nice.
So it's definitely worth checking out. I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people did. So the last one for me before I go on to talk about some of your favorite TV shows of 2017, and this one might be a little bit of a surprise because I know it kind of came out near the end, but I'm adding it to the list. It came out at the end of 2016, but I'm adding it to the list 2017 because that's when I watched it, and that was Split. And I wanted to kind of talk about that because it was
Shyamalan.
Yeah, right on the line there.
You know, with Shyamalan, it's like you just fall for it every time. It's like, no, sir, you won't get my money again. I know what you did last time, and then it's the same thing every time. It just, I stopped falling for it a while ago, but I actually like this movie.
I agree, and ultimately, it really comes down to James McAvoy being the star of this one. It wasn't a true 2017 release, but what
honorable mention.
Yeah, it's my honorable mention because it was the first movie I saw of 2017 that I enjoyed, and some of the highlights of it is maybe this is what happens when you take a guy like Shyamalan who kind of lost his way, touted as the next Spielberg a little too early, and ever since I think Lady in the Water, it's been just a downhill plummet.
A mess.
Yeah, it was one hot mess after another.
Well, just the one trick pony thing. It's like, okay,
we get it.
Surprise ending, we get it, sir. Yeah. Like, style, like he just needs to find his style, and he owes a lot to like you said, Spielberg, and he owes a lot to Hitchcock. I mean, I think he's a unique director for, the first couple movies he did alone.
Yeah, I enjoyed quite a few that he has made, and so I always want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But after you get burned on a few of them, especially the the Mark Wahlberg flick where the wind is the enemy. Yeah, I know it's a bit stretched.
Yeah, we know.
I think that for me, really, what was that? The Happening, I think. That was his follow up to.
I've repressed that movie from my memory.
Yeah, there's nothing happening at all in that movie.
No.
And then he goes on and does The Last Airbender, which I watched just so I could have an opinion on it, and that was brutal. And then you had to get punished with an hour, almost 2 hours of After Earth.
Yuck.
Oh, that was brutal. And I don't know how he's I'm like,
you subjected yourself to that
well,
torture?
I mean, Will Smith usually has great movies, and I'm going, well, if Will sees something in it, then I'll give him a shot. And I was like, what the hell was I thinking? And it was the biggest bomb of his career. So for him to kind of finally come back after a few years of coming out with Split, it was definitely refreshing, and it was nice to learn that this is the follow-up to Unbreakable.
And that's one of my favorite movies he's done.
Yeah, it's definitely his best movie, and that's why he's going on to doing Glass, which is currently in post-production. That is the third movie in the Unbreakable trilogy. So ultimately, Split is just setting up the main villain for the third movie, where it's going to bring back Samuel Jackson and Bruce Willis, among others, in the Unbreakable universe. So
come back, kid.
I'm pretty pumped about it, but that's not going to happen until January of 2019.
We'll have to get to that another time.
All right, enough of the movies. Hopefully there's something out there you guys would enjoy and want to listen to. Definitely more on the list that aren't really going to make the cut for today's episode, but there is definitely a few on the TV side. Now, I got to be honest, TV was a little bit lean for me. Not as many wins, so I'm very curious to see what you've got. I've only got 3 on my list, but why don't you kick it off with something that you definitely enjoyed in 2017?
Well, I really liked season 3 of Fargo.
Oh, I bought it and I haven't watched it. I'm a horrible person.
I'm a huge fan of the movie, so when they were first putting out the series, I was, obviously pumped. And each series run is just, it kind of sticks to the tone of the original, but it takes it in a whole other direction.
They're so well made. And so I watched the first season, I think twice for the Fargo, and I was blown away by how much I actually really enjoyed it. Some
Martin Freeman was
some of the best TV you're gonna get. Season 2, I personally thought this is the best single season in any series I have ever seen. That's what I thought of season 2.
It was excellent.
It's as good as it can get. So how does season 3 stand now that I've kind of set it up that way?
Well, I mean, season 3 has. I mean, I don't want to get into it too in depth and really spoil it, but it each kind of each season has its own kind of setting, different time
its own
period.
Flavor, right?
Yeah, so I think this season really kind of focuses on technology and our place in it, and so it has a lot of that. But then, of course, like the other seasons, it has a nod not only to a lot of Fargo stuff, and this season's kind of really heavy on it. I mean, you have to be a big fan of the movie to catch a lot of this. Just everything from kind of certain characters to certain little phrases from Fargo.
Mm-hmm.
But it also kind of borrows a lot from the Coen Brothers universe. Mm-hmm. So, you get a lot of, I mean, if you're a fan of their movies like I am, you're just catching this stuff left and right.
You're just eating it up. Look at you.
Totally. Yeah. Right. So, I loved it. I thought it was good. Saw, of course, the TV run, watched it again recently. I don't know if they're going to do a season 4. I mean, it's kind of an auteur series. The guy who does it is name's Noah Hawley, and he did Legion, the series Legion.
Yeah.
And I think he did that, but I think he did that as a break between 2 of the seasons of Fargo. But he kind of writes a lot of it. He comes up with the whole story. He directs some of them. He's saying if I get a new idea for it, but he also makes a good point where he doesn't want to play this into the ground too much. And I think, if you put out another season, you got to end it because you're starting to play it a little bit too into the ground with the Fargo-isms, I guess you could say.
Yeah, there's only so much you can extract before you start to get in Shyamalan territory, right?
Yeah, and I mean, even with like the Coen brothers, a lot of their movies it's always like a lot of them deal with like the caper gone wrong, and then here's all the human element gets involved. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot of that in all 3 seasons of Fargo, but it's still a great watch. It's entertaining, and for the acting alone, and like you said, very well made. It deserves to be treated as such because it's just wonderful.
Did you feel that the 3rd season was their best yet?
No, I'd have to go with you, and I'd go with season 2.
Season 2.
But I mean, season 1's great too, so it's really hard to pick. I mean, season 3 had Ewan McGregor playing double roles. So he played brothers.
Gotcha. That's right, twins, right?
Yeah. So that was interesting. And then you had some other characters. I don't want to spoil too much of it, but there's just some nice surprises in there.
Nice. Well, I need to get back on it and finish it. I only watched the first episode, and then I don't know what happened, so my bad.
You'll get to it.
I'll get to it soon.
You'll get to it.
One thing that I burned through was Godless on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty short. I mean, we're looking at just a handful of episodes within that, only 7 episodes. Yeah, it was very refreshing to see Jeff Daniels take the reins of a villain.
That was interesting.
Thought he did a great job with that. Good casting all around. Good story. I always appreciate something that doesn't look to be a new universe or a new franchise has begun. It's just a quick little mini series.
Self-contained.
Yeah, there's not too many of them out there. Everything continues to want to become something that is going to be the next Game of Thrones or something along those lines. And I don't think any Western really has that potential outside of like the approach that maybe Westworld's taking. But overall,
and that's unique.
Overall, it's very refreshing, very simple. There's not a lot of flashiness to it, but it's a great story. It's great acting. You're going to burn through those 7 episodes super quick. So if you haven't seen it yet, you definitely need to add Godless to your list.
Yeah, I did it in a couple days. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it was like a day and a half for me. Maybe a little bit longer, but pretty quick.
Yeah.
Godless, check it out.
Yeah, and then another, Netflix put out some great ones. One that I really liked was Ozark.
Ozark. Oh, I don't know why I didn't add that to my list. Yes.
You haven't seen Ozark?
I have.
Oh,
many people compare it to Breaking Bad in the woods, but I don't think that's a fair comparison.
No, it's more of a kind of a slow burn, to me, but I really liked it. I don't know if they're going to do another season or not, but it was definitely interesting.
Yeah, I know a second season is in the works. We really wouldn't see anything till later on this year. But putting Jason Bateman as a lead is something I was always a little bit fishy about. But this is a big passion project of his, and he brought it to there. And I thought he was great for the character and for how it was executed. Laura Linney plays his wife, and I'm not the biggest fan of her but she always plays her parts very well. She's always a little neurotic and a little edgy, and it was perfect for what she did in here. Reminded me a lot of how she was in the Truman Show a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, their dynamic is really good in this show.
Very very convincing in a lot of ways. But so what's the basic premise of Ozark for those who haven't seen it?
Basically just like a really quick rundown. He's like this accountant, and he has to for certain situations and circumstances, he has to relocate to Ozark, more or less, and start laundering money for a drug dealer south of the border. And then he, in doing so, he starts kind of running afoul of the local drug dealers, and then things kind of start going downhill from there. So.
Yeah, I'm curious how accurate Missouri and the Ozarks are. If I were to go visit, I know that it was shot in some pretty cool locations, some locations that are recognizable with other shows and programs. It's a good setting. It's definitely one of those ones to where, I mean, even as the title says it, the location is a big part of the character of the movie.
And that's kind of going back to Breaking Bad. I mean, this show and Breaking Bad, they pick these kind of unlikely locations where these things happen. And like the location itself becomes this other character in the show. It's just always kind of present, and sometimes the environment can really be against you. So it's definitely sets up a lot of intriguing scenes,
and the types of characters that they can write into there that they work with. Where you get a city boy from Chicago that's now up in the Ozarks,
sure.
And he's interacting with all these hillbillies who have different ways of getting things done, but nevertheless are still just as efficient. It was nice to kind of see how somebody is in over his head, yet seems to sometimes find ways of success.
Yeah.
Very entertaining though. I really enjoyed Ozark. I almost enjoyed it as much as Mindhunter, which is another great Netflix show. You watch that one?
What's
Mindhunter?
Oh, I did like Mindhunter.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was good. I mean, it walking into it, you might think it's just this cop show. It's really slow.
Very.
It kind of unravels in the story, and the background's interesting, and I know they're going to do a couple more seasons at least. So they're setting up a lot of that, just kind of getting into the everything. I thought it was really good. And David Fincher, like his tone is all over this.
No, absolutely. And it's refreshing to see him come up with something new, introduce it on a platform like Netflix when it was something you'd gladly pay more money for. I don't know anybody who has seen it that didn't enjoy it. The acting was superb. There's definitely lots of creeps when you're interviewing serial killers, and just the way that they blend those guys in. You don't get that level of performance often on Netflix series. So it was pretty rad.
Yeah.
So Mindhunter is essentially in the early 70s, right, where there's FBI agents are starting to essentially develop criminal science. It's a very new category for detective work and criminal law. And
it's just kind of how you profile a serial killer.
Yeah, the psychology of a murderer, what makes them do what they do. And so I liked seeing that story that kind of comes around, and how it influences the main character to where a little obsessive, and there's a little bit of a celebrity chasing with these people who do unspeakable things. So it's interesting to see how it influences the main characters, how it impacts other people's lives. It's definitely creepy, and that's what I enjoyed about it. I like some of those darker things.
Yeah, I mean, it reminded me, going back to Fincher, reminded me of a couple of my favorite movies that he's done, Seven and Zodiac.
Yeah, he borrows from both of those, even a little bit more closer to how Zodiac was.
Yeah.
It's great. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Mindhunter, Netflix.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Anything on your neck of the woods? What else you got?
What about Preacher?
Preacher was something I gave it a go for a while. I think I made it through the first season, or most of the first season. I don't know. I couldn't dive in completely.
It's a tough show.
I enjoyed it so far. I think a lot of it was just kind of learning the characters and the premise, and where I kind of dipped out was where Preacher was just starting to learn about his abilities.
Yeah.
So I don't have a strong opinion. I don't really feel one way or the other. I enjoyed what I saw so far. Wasn't enough to grab me to pound through it, but I think that was also because it was on cable when I was watching it at the time. So I'm not sure if it's out on Netflix or Amazon or something yet. That would be a little bit easier for me to kind of go back into it.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a fan of the comic book. I was actually introduced to it by a former coworker of yours.
Oh yeah.
And it's very dark. It's very satirical. It's very shocking. I mean, the comic book, it's interesting to see all those characters brought to life. The show's kind of taken it in a different direction that's not really in the comic book. But a lot of the characters are, popping up here and there. So, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough to watch at times. It can be a bit much.
And that's where I kind of, without having a foundation of enjoying the comics or anything, I don't know if it's close to that style or in that vein, or has the same kind of attitude, but is a little more accessible.
Yeah.
Either way,
it helps if you know.
I enjoyed the violence. I enjoyed just how well it was executed and portrayed. I just didn't really grab towards any of the characters within the time I watched.
Yeah. And I mean, the comic book's even more darker than the show. I mean, there's certain things in the comic book that the show's not even talking about. So,
and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. There's certain things they probably shouldn't be bringing up.
Nice. Well, I definitely need to see if it's out there and go back in and give it another shake, because I know it's not going away anytime soon.
No. Yeah, I mean, Rogen's, I think Seth Rogen's writing it and producing it. So.
Oh, there you go. It's his little passion project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, last one for me, and I'm not going to go in too deep because I want to spend more time on this in the future, but I wanted to kind of call it out to give some of the listeners opportunity to watch Dark on Netflix. It's the Germans. And so this is another one of the ones, as I mentioned earlier, where I like going into something without knowing anything about it. And that's exactly what this was. So I didn't even know it was straight up German when I started it.
Really?
I had no idea. So
you're like, why are they talking funny?
Well, it was English overdubbed, and I kind of picked up on that right away. And I went, okay, hold on a second. So I'm using the Apple TV, and I switch it to English subtitles, and then English overdubs off, and it goes right into this German. That's the best
way to see it.
Yeah, and this big part of it is you got to hear it in German, because
it definitely lends itself to the vibe.
Yeah, the characters, and you don't want to take away their Germanness, because that's a big selling point of what makes it cool. And I was blown away, and that's an understatement. Not only does our small little ignorant American brains go, wow, other people in other countries can make good shows, but it starts to tell me, like, there's probably this whole sea of movies and TV out there that I'm just not getting exposed to. And I have a handful of my favorite foreign flicks, but it's kind of like college football to me. It's like I don't have enough bandwidth to pay attention to the NFL and all these college sports. That's what my concern is with a lot of these foreign films. But if you're looking for something to kind of get you started, Dark is an awesome place to go.
It's a good entry point.
It's a great entry point, and really, some people are saying it's an adult Stranger Things, which I don't think is a fair comparison. It's just a family saga that deals with supernatural issues in this town.
It's its own thing,
and I personally think it's way better than Stranger Things. It's not relying on nostalgia as its selling point.
Yeah, I mean, and let's talk about Stranger Things real quick. I mean, I do love the show, and it's interesting to see. I mean, they're bringing in, obviously, like a lot of the 80s, they're the adults now.
Yeah.
So,
you're bringing it with Sean Astin.
Sean Astin, you have Winona Ryder, even Paul Reiser. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but he was the jerk in Aliens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't forget him.
He played Burke, yeah. I mean, so that's kind of interesting to see, but it does get a little, it's like, okay, we get it. Like,
well, I actually just finished watching season 2, and I got up to the 7th episode and just stopped, and not for any reason. I had to go out of town or something like that, and I didn't even care. I didn't even care about going back. Like, I wasn't interested.
Yeah.
And so I went back and I watched the rest of it, and it's enjoyable. It's well made. The music is awesome. They do it. Is very hard.
A lot of care.
Yeah, it's
a lot of care.
Absolutely, it's hard to be critical about it because it's done so well, which is very refreshing.
And it's so well loved, you're going to get a lot of crap if you start talking.
Yeah, but I think that most people that love it too much, most of them I've had conversations with aren't too objective, and that's if you extract all the nostalgia from it, and what you're left is just a screenplay. And if you were just to read the screenplay, would it have that same kind of effect on you? I think it's a good screenplay. It's well written. But the story just kind of moves along. I get a little bit tired with the kid actors in this particular one, because and this is what I kind of came to after finishing it up just a few days ago, is that I didn't actually care about what happened to any of these people. I didn't care who lived or who died. The most interesting, I think, character.
It's a little annoying.
Well, the most interesting character for me is the sheriff, and I think that he's got probably the most interesting story out of there, and it was great to kind of see them give Jim Hopper, the sheriff, a little bit more screen time. Actually, a lot more. I would say he's almost the main character in the season, which I thought was a good move.
He was in it a lot.
It was a good move.
A good move. You have to go with those other characters to kind of see, where else can we take this show?
And that's where you kind of feel like they're still trying to figure it out. They want to keep it alive and not resolve things. Yeah. But if they ended it after season 1, I would have been content. It would have been great. So it's a mediocre sophomore effort from the first one. It's entertaining. You're definitely not going to be disappointed. I just don't think it's the greatest thing out there.
No. There's a lot like Dark. I think Dark is a lot more nuances to it. I mean, if we're gonna do a future episode of Dark, there's a couple things I'll bring up at that time.
Yeah.
I think it was. I mean, it's just interesting that Netflix is kind of dipping its toe in these other markets, overseas, and I mean, I remember they were just sending me movies in the mail, and now they're huge.
Yeah, it's good to see. It's good to see.
And most of the shows we talked about, I think, are almost all Netflix shows. So, definitely quality making of films, movies, and all that. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you guys haven't seen Dark yet, check it out. We'll do a future episode on that where we kind of dive in a little bit more and talk about the story and all the little intricacies that are within there, because there's a lot to discuss.
Yeah.
All right. Any last hits on your TV lists?
That's all I got for now. I think we covered a bunch of stuff.
Awesome. Here. Well, I know that there's a handful I got from you, which were surprises for me, but I've added them to my list to check out. Hopefully you guys out there find something similar that you haven't quite seen yet. If you are looking for us to talk about any movies in the future, you can head over to our Facebook page at The Harsch Review, and you can kind of leave us a note on a movie or show you would like for us to kind of do a little bit more of a bigger discussion about. But outside of that, I think we're good. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good.
All right. Well, we're going to call it an episode, guys. Thanks for coming by. This is Sean.
And I'm Ryan.
And we'll talk to you next time. Take care.
See you later.